3, 2, 1. Brad, welcome to my show. How are you, man?
Hi, Fabio. I'm really good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. You and we just met in person in Sydney.
Yeah, that's right.
And
So
I
you're standing
remember,
by yourself, so I thought I'd just walk up and say good day.
No, but I really remember seeing you and then realizing who you were because, we were talking online a little bit.
Yeah. No, unimagined. The conference was amazing. It was so good to get around and talk to people, and working by myself in this in the city that I'm in. There's no other ArchViz artists. I don't get to talk to anyone about this sort of stuff.
Where are you based exactly?
I'm in Newcastle, so 2 hours north of Sydney. So we're close, but we're not quite in the midst of the big city. Yeah.
So the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you, and some people, they might not know who you are. You started relatively recently with this job, but you're doing good, and you have a nice, cool story to share with my followers. And the reason why I think it's a cool story, it's because when people come to me for advice, I tell them exactly not to do what you did.
Right. Okay. So I go against the rules.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, the thing is that I like when people can prove me wrong because, my job here is to inspire others to do the right thing. And if I can bring that piece of content that can click in the head of people, this is not about me being right or wrong. It's about, us together bringing and delivering value for the community.
Sure.
And you used to be a pharmacist. And now you're a 3D artist.
Absolutely. I was there for 10 years.
10 years?
10 years as a pharmacist. Yeah.
This is like, I honestly, I can't believe that you did that, and you did that, quite successfully. What made you decide to change career?
So I went straight into pharmacy after university, and straight into a full-time workload. It was pretty hectic for the first few years. Learning, basically uni prepares you only so much. You get on in the job. I was managing a pharmacy from day one, and I put everything into it for the first couple of years. When you're young and you're fit and you're able to go hard, I did for the first 4 or 5 years, and then after that, sort of my interest waned a little bit. There was not really anywhere else to go, sort of in the field. You can keep reading the same books over and over again, but there's only so many drugs in the world, and unless I was going to buy into a pharmacy, which you need a lot of money to back yourself into, which I didn't have at the time, there was nowhere to go. So I was just working for the man, and it got boring. It got monotonous, and I had always been a creative person, and pharmacy has got no creativity going for it.
Yeah.
So that's when I started learning how to do this halfway through that career. And
so you're basically a qualified pharmacist. You've studied pharmacy.
I managed a pharmacy for 10 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I went to uni for 5 years.
Okay.
And came out. I think I was 23 when I started, and yeah.
And how did you get into ArchViz? What made you, how did you get interested? Why ArchViz specifically?
Okay. This one, so I'm not working by myself. Pair Studio is me and my wife. So we're a husband-wife team. She's a trained architect. So basically we bought our house. The reason I got into this, the whole reason I learned how to do it was because we bought our house when I was 24, and straight off the bat, she had ideas about what we're going to do to our house, big plans. And I'm not the person that can see her plans off the bat, so I needed to see it. Before I could say, yeah, let's spend however much money on this, I wanted to feel it. I wanted to see the space. So I started with Maxwell Studio, Maxwell Render. They have this little standalone application that came with it. I think I got an educational version from somewhere, and I started playing with that and building spaces, and that's where I started. I started building our renovations. And from there, it just progressed. I got really interested in it and started doing little personal projects here and there, and it just snowballed, and here I am.
So basically, you were your own client, and then you self-imposed yourself to learn the stuff and say, so you started with a problem, and then you created the solution, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'd always been interested in 3D. I'd played with 3ds Max when I was a teenager, a little bit, doing little uh, tutorials here and there, but left it for probably 10 years or so and didn't do 3D for that long, and then came back to it later on and found it again and sort of, yeah, fell for it.
It was like finding again the love of your life.
Absolutely. It's a
So let's talk a
bit
little
like
bit
that.
about the learning process, because of course,
Sure.
it's not simple to learn something and then to learn the job that comes with the skills that you have to learn. Like in 3D, we could actually make a statement that, the skills aren't the job itself, right? You need to learn one and you need to learn the other.
Yep.
First of all, how did you learn 3D? What pushed you towards, the set of tools that you use? And I'm asking you this because you're cinema for the user, so, same family
Absolutely.
here. You use
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Corona, if I don't mistake.
I used to use Corona a lot, and I still use it every now and again, but I'm onto Redshift now. I use Redshift for
Okay.
most of my work.
Okay.
But yeah, I still use Corona whenever I need to get something out quickly, or for certain jobs I might pick it. But the reason I went to C4D was because Maxwell Studio actually looks like a really cut down version of C4D. And when I found C4D, I was like, this is the same as what I've been using. This is easy. It was just intuitive to learn to start with. So as an interface point of view, that was a simple transfer over. And from there on, learning was just, it was a slow process. I did some tutorials here and there, but starting with ArchiCAD models, I'd bring those in and then work on those, and then you'd learn them over time, you'd learn how to model from the ground up. And yeah, it was just a slow process. Lots of trial and error. I played with V-Ray for C4D very early on. When Laub was on it and he was taking care of it. It was incredibly buggy and somewhat difficult to use at the time, but it did the job, and I used it for some of my very early projects. Yeah.
It got better since then.
Oh, I know it has. I know it has. I was so glad when I saw that Chaos Group had taken over development of it. For one, it was so slow to develop anything and catch up anywhere near what Chaos Group was doing, but it was just so buggy and so difficult to stand by. Yeah, so yeah, that was a learning process. I mean, the learning process was me at the pharmacy in between scripts and in
Exactly,
quiet
that's
times
what I
after
wanted to
after
understand. Like, you had
after
to
I'd
do
got
it
all my
whilst...
work done, I'd pull out my laptop and I'd get stuck into whatever I was working on at the time, and if I had to shut the laptop down quickly and go and serve someone, I would. That was the job. It was just in the middle, and then I'd bring it home and I'd keep working on whatever I was working on. And yeah, that was my life for a few years, just to get on top of it and really nut it out, I guess, and get some skills in it. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your workflow. Are you at the moment still only visualizing the projects that you guys design, or do you also do like client work? How does that work? And feel free to...
Basically, our client base has started from my wife's original firm that she worked for before we started a family, had kids. So the network that she had, we started doing a few little jobs with that architect, or the architects there, and word of mouth basically spread through Newcastle. And most of our work is from local developers, local real estate agents, local businesses. But yeah, we don't really design. Corinne she does interior architecture work. So she'll come into a project that's been designed by another architecture firm and do the interior palette and do the kitchen design and laundry design and those sort of things. And sometimes I get engaged for the renders for that. Sometimes we don't. We're not always working hand in hand, but sometimes we are, and it's a really smooth process when we do work together. It's fantastic. But yeah, a lot of it's client based.
But she doesn't do visualization herself, only like
No,
technical...
well, she doesn't. She is integral to that side of the business as well, though,
Yeah.
because she's like my second set of eyes.
Yeah.
You know how when you're looking at a project forever and you start to lose what's looking good in an image, you look at the same image for so long and you start to lose a feel of what is this even good anymore? I don't know. And I just call her in and she basically tells me what needs to change or what needs to happen, or she's also integral to the process of furnishing a place, furnishing an interior or styling or those sort of parts of the image process. That's where she really comes in and helps me. So she doesn't get on the tools and doesn't really know how to use any of the tools. But without her, I think I'd probably struggle a bit. My interior design work may not be quite as good as it is sometimes.
I like that. Let me ask you something. Now, of course, in your case, it's a specific type of workflow and you work together with your wife, sometimes together. Do you ever miss, though, not being in a studio with like other 3D artists and, kind of like work with other creative people that do the same thing?
I've never done it. Obviously, coming straight from pharmacy and starting this, I've never been in a studio and working with, but I imagine it would be an amazing learning experience. The amount of information that you absorb from the people around you and just chatting through problems and solving problems together. I feel like you'd really sort of took me all these years to get to where I am of learning slowly. Imagine starting at a young age in a studio. You'd really just absorb so much wisdom and information and tricks and tips from other more senior artists. You'd really build your wealth of knowledge really quite quickly, I think.
How old are you?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure. I'm 35.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think that this is also one of the things that I wish I could go back and fix about myself, because most of the stuff I had to learn it, on my own. And then later on I joined the studio and I was already I had already a senior position and not a junior. And I feel like sometimes the bases are not really there. But then again, everybody has a different path. I mean, your path, it's totally different from the majority of people that go into.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never change the path, but sometimes I do think, I mean, working from home and doing what we do is incredibly flexible. And I mean, the main reason why I left pharmacy was work life didn't sort of balance with family life at all. I was getting home at 7:00 at night, and an infant was, our first child was 2 when I quit. He was going to bed at 7:00. So, I was working 6 days a week till those sort of late hours at night. It's just not for family life at all. So that was the main reason why I left, to be a better father and better husband and to do that family life thing. So I'd never change where we were at. It's working so well for us now. But if I didn't do pharmacy and if I got straight into this when I was 17, 18 and into it straight away, I think, working in a studio would have really, I'd be probably a different artist to what I am now, if you know what I mean.
We're going to go back to this idea of work-life balance, because there is maybe a variation of the same thing that I want to hear from you. But we'll do that in a second. On my channel, I focus a lot on the business side of ArchViz. Can you give me a little bit of your own insights as of what it was like for you to build this business, and what were the things that you had to learn and incorporate in this, especially because you had to do it in parallel with pharmacy and then learning the software and, can you expand a little bit on this?
Yeah. To be honest, it's my wife's experience. My wife's experience in architecture was probably the biggest helping hand. I mean, she knew how to speak to clients. She knew how to deal with clients. She always still corrects me about how to handle certain situations. So her having seen her bosses do their job, and her having to communicate with clients, because I mean they're the same clients really. Whether you're an architecture or whether you're an architect or an ArchViz visualizer, you're dealing with the same people, and you kind of have to deal with them the same way. So that was a big learning curve for me, and to be honest, she took care of a lot of that to start with, and she still does. You know, I'm quite a bit more busy than she is at the moment, especially she's taken some time off because we've got a newborn, well, not a newborn, 6-month-old.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, we've got a bundle of joy that's making life difficult for us at the moment. So she's taken time off, but she still does a lot of the emailing and client communication for me while I just get on the tools and keep going. But yeah, it was difficult. It really still is. That's the biggest, probably the biggest struggle with running this sort of business is not just maintaining client communication, but dealing with potentially difficult clients or clients who need to be caressed and molded back to where is realistic, or keeping their expectations in check. And yeah, it's hard, but my wife can navigate any situation, any client I've ever seen that's potentially difficult, and bring them back around to where they need to be, and it's wonderful. So she's got that set of skills that I don't even begin to imagine or pretend that I have those skill set.
I'm very happy to hear that, because, you know, like my wife, in my own personal business and in my career, she has had a very influential position also. And, you know, I think it's just humane to question yourself when there is somebody else behind you pushing you. But then again, I think that, you know, it's the beautiful thing about life, right? You find a person that completes you, and you become this, right? It's not like it's her and it's me. It's you guys together, and I love that.
It's a team. You're a team. That's right.
I think the family is one of the most underrated things nowadays. You know, a lot of people focus on career and they say, I'll wait for the family later on. When actually, you know, if you are good in your family and you're happy and you come home and you're happy to stay at home, that's the base of everything, right? It's stability.
Yeah, totally.
You cannot get wrong.
Can't leave it. You can't leave it too late, man. It's hard work. Yeah. And I'm not young anymore, but I'm not that old either. I know I've got a lot of friends who still haven't made the jump, and I just think, oh, guys, you're going to be struggling when you do it. It's going to be hard work. But yeah, no, it's good fun. It's really good fun.
I don't have kids yet. I hope soon we're gonna do that. But you know, for now, it is what it is.
Yeah. Oh, you got to be ready for it.
Let me ask you something. Now that you're more or less established, what are future plans for your studio?
It's difficult. I mean, at the moment, as I said, we've got a 6-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 5-year-old. I think for everyone, for our sake and for the kids' sake, it's probably most sensible to keep things just the two of us and keep doing what we're doing at the moment. Solidify the business, keep it moving, and then once the kids go to school, or at least 2 of them go to school, and we've got 5 days of work there, then it's more likely that we'd look at expanding. I'd love to expand. I'd love to have a small team of people working with us, and I think that's totally doable. But for the meanwhile, we're juggling really quite hard. It makes more sense to stay just the 2 of us.
Of course,
I'd love to have a small team, 2 or 3 other people in a studio with us would be amazing. I think a small team it could be a lot of fun. You develop personal relationships with them, and it'd be great.
Yeah, I totally get it. And you know, sometimes it takes also a little bit of maturity to say, look, we want to do things our way. We want to keep control. We're going to stay small. We don't have sometimes it's, I don't want to use the word ambition because I don't think it's the right word, but sometimes people want to do things, like super big just because it feels like they have to prove something to somebody.
Yeah.
Especially in this
Have
field,
to
a
do it
lot of,
to feel successful.
yeah, a lot of like big egos. But like having something where you can do beautiful things, because your work, it's beautiful, it's and it surprises me that in a way you have done it in such a short time,
Thanks, man. Like, well, I don't know. Like, I look at so many other artists around the place, and I always come back to my work and think, oh, is it that good? I don't know. It's hard. Super self-critical we are over here, and
Artists, that's the worst sickness that they can have, it's like,
I know it sucks, but as long as we're keeping clients happy, I am happy.
I give you a small tip on how you can feel better about your 3D work. Start making hand sketches with a pencil. And when you're gonna look at those and you're gonna look at your work, you're gonna be like, hey, you know what? My 3D is a lot better.
Oh, I can't draw, man.
Yeah, there you go.
One bit. I can't draw at all, so I don't even pick up a pencil.
Let me ask you, because we've already touched on this, but a lot of people say that 3D, it's actually the worst business to balance life quality, with family and
I can imagine. Look, it's been a real struggle, and without wanting to sound like a terrible husband, father, family figure, it's kind of I'm dealing with this constant want and need to get away and go and keep working. So I feel like you can get better. You get better skills. You learn more software. You learn all these other things, and it's going to make your process easier and better and more efficient and better quality and all this stuff. But I have to step back and go, no, I've got a family. I've got kids. I need to be there for them, and I want to be there for them as well. But it's just like this battle, this constant, what is it, like a tug of war between the two.
Yeah.
Where I want to go and disappear and learn and keep progressing, but I want to be out here as well. I want to do the family things, but as best as I can. And I love spending time with my kids, so it's not hard to make the decision, but I could spend, and I imagine if I didn't have a wife and a family, I'd be stuck in front of the computer forever,
I call this,
it'd be so easy to do it.
I call this the 3D FOMO, the fear of missing out on learning and watching tutorials and
totally.
But sometimes like I look at the work of certain artists, also friends of mine, and for these guys for 10, maybe 15 years, they've done the same thing using like 2 sets of tools. They've learned nothing other technical. Right. Just like, they improve their art to the point that they can do incredible stuff. And I'm like, maybe, maybe we shouldn't be so concerned about the technical aspect.
Yeah,
maybe we
true.
should.
Look, so much experience, so much quality of work comes from the artist's eye. And that's, something that comes with experience. And you can't learn that from a tutorial. You can't learn that from, another piece of software. It's so important to just do work and continue to do work and just build your skill set and build your eye and
Tell me one thing, and feel free to freestyle on this question, because I think that in a way the answer of this will come from your own personal experience and perspective, which is totally fine. But now that you're fresh and you've been doing this for not as long as other companies that have been in this business, how do you foresee the future of this discipline in the next 10, 15 years? What do you think it's going to change?
10, 15 years is a long time. Even 3 years that 3 years I've been in business, but I've been here for maybe looking at the software and the render engines and all that for maybe 8 or 9 years now. Another 10 years, I mean, everything's changed dramatically in 8 or 9 years. So another 10 years would just be, it's almost unforeseeable, really. Definitely VR is going to be huge. I imagine every client, every marketing agency is going to want VR for their latest buildings, apartments. It's going to be the standard and probably expected for every potential buyer is going to want to walk around their the apartment they're looking at. But I guess I haven't played with Unreal Engine much or any other Unities or any of that sort of thing. But I just don't think there's still images and directed animations are ever going to really go out of style. There's so much artistry that goes into those two, still images and directed animations, that you don't get, that a client's not going to get from walking around with a set of goggles on or moving a keypad or whatever. He's not going to go and find the right angles that look the best. So I think that's where the joy comes from for me, finding the right angles, just as a photographer does, or some animations that just look incredible. Like I think the first one I ever saw was the third and the seventh, which is just, it still blows my mind that guy did that. Alex Raymond did that so long ago. But that's pure artistry, and you're not going to get that from a VR set. So I don't know. It's going to. I'm not sure whether it's bleak and that the artistry is going to be taken out of the field, and we're just going to be documenting this building in 3D and building all the materials and making the materials look great, so that a prospective buyer can come and walk around it and look at it and go, wow, there's a kitchen, great. I'm not sure whether it's going to have the artistry taken out of it, or whether it's still going to be there and it's still going to be amazing and people are still going to want still images that look brilliant.
I think that if we look at and this is something that I always recommend people to do, if we look at the automotive industry, you're able now to go, if you're buying a specific type of car, to go into a center, and you can experience also the car in VR. You can also test drive it in VR. So, they're making all these things available for people. I recently saw a video, I think it was from Nissan, where they put together some sort of simulation of their latest concept car. And, people were going crazy, But to a certain extent, people will still always want to buy in an idea and in an ideal. It's like, when you buy a German car, you don't buy it for the experience of buying the German car. You do it because that it's going to put you up there with those who own a German car. And that type of communication, in a way or another, will always use a means of images, videos, marketing, messages and all that kind of stuff. I don't think we're ever going to lose that.
Yeah.
At least I hope, because, I do identify with products. I do identify with certain brands. It's like, I buy Nike because of the message that Nike stands for, and not because they have the swoosh or, what I mean. And I think that in a way, our industry, the built industry, it's very slow at catching up with this. But there will be a time where we're going to identify also with the place where we're going to be living in a different way than we do today. Today people just look at a house. Maybe one day, I don't know, we're going to identify with a specific area of a city, or, with a certain area of the city. It's more for people like us. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. It's a very abstract idea, but I think that, we're never going to lose that. At least I hope.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we've got to have work, don't we?
Yeah.
I do think, in the future, the quality of images and quality of work is going to be incredible. I mean, the quality of work has risen so far in the last couple of years. So, and with the ease of render engines these days, Corona and even V-Ray has become a lot easier. There's going to be more people out there, so it's going to be more competitive, and it's going to be, people scratching for work left, right, and centre. But that's business, eh?
But that's exactly why I think that, you know, we're going to see beautiful things, because like if a good image becomes
the standard.
Yes, if a good image becomes the base, then what are the big developers going to do to stand out, you know?
Yeah.
So that will require a lot more creativity, I think. But
push the standard of work up drastically, yeah.
Brad, listen, these were all the questions that I wanted to ask you. I'm going to probably call this video the 3D pharmacist.
Sure, call it whatever you like, man.
But you know, I really love, like, I like to be able to bring to people stories coming from, you know, a different side of our industry. And I want to thank you for taking the time and, you know, lending your presence to the show. And I really hope that people will be interested in finding out more about you. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
Most of basically Instagram's the only place I post work for Pear Studio. So yeah, Pear Studio on Instagram is where we post our interesting work, and yeah, feel free to have a look or get in touch and send us a message, and yeah.
I'll put the link in the description.
Cool, thanks, man. Just want to thank you for having me on as well. It's a bit of an honor, and I was very unexpected. But yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It's been good to chat about it. I think I've got a unique perspective of the industry, and I've got a unique story. So yeah, thanks, man.
Brad, thanks a lot for doing this. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to stop the recording so that I can say goodbye again, okay?
Okay, thanks, man.
Cheers, man.